My name is Anna. This is Hugh. And today I want to do another video in my review series where I talk about humectants. So for humectants, I'm going to do a review about 3 humectants today. And I want to talk about, I guess, more of what a humectant is in this video, kind of give some background to it, and then like the placements that I would be using them, because it's basically all the same for me. However, it could be different for you. And then kind of go into the review again of the 3 humectants that I want to talk about today. So if you're interested in hearing about humectants, keep on watching. I kind of want to check and make sure the video is going, so I'm going to do that. Yeah. That's good, because it's happened before where I say a whole bunch of things and then I'm not recording. That's always frustrating. Okay, so humectants are substances that balance the moisture between a space or an environment and the product or another object. And so in relation to me, I utilize humectants in my hair care space. There are other applications for humectants, and I think that I will create a separate video for the other applications of humectants outside of hair care, because I primarily use them for hair care, and I kind of want to give a review of my experience utilizing them in that space. And then I could talk about humectants as an ingredient in other spaces in a separate review. So for today, I'm going to talk about 3 humectants. I'm going to talk about glycerin, honey, and tamarind extract, or just tamarind paste if you want to use paste. I perceive that utilizing a humectant is dependent on where you live. So it depends on the environment that you have outside as to if it would, or which products it would be pertinent to put a humectant in for you to get the most benefits from it. So if you live in a humid environment and you have a humectant, you would be attracting the moisture from the air to whatever the space is that you're applying the humectant. And if you live in a dry environment and you're applying a humectant, if your space is more moisturized than the external, then it will remove some of that moisture and place it into the external. At least that's my perception of it, because it balances the relation of the moisture and the environment. That being said, I also have, the type of hair that I have is very thick, and I have low porosity hair. So once I can get moisture into my hair, it retains that moisture very well. I don't lose moisture very easily in my hair, and I don't perceive needing a humectant to regulate the moisture between my hair and the outside environment, because I do live in a humid environment. So I don't utilize humectants in stylers for me personally. So a styling product is something that I would wear outside, or it is the last step of me styling my hair. And I do not utilize humectants in a space in which they will be in my stylers. Because as I expressed, my hair is low porosity. I don't need that balance of moisture. However, if you have low porosity hair and you perceive that that's beneficial for you, that you want the moisture from the air to penetrate your hair, go ahead and add a humectant into your styling products, or look for a humectant in your styling products. If you have more of a medium, normal, or like high porosity hair space, or cuticle space, utilizing a humectant would be good for you if you live in a humid environment because it would attract the moisture to those zones that you need it the most. However, I can also perceive that maybe high porosity haired people or normal or medium hair porosity haired people might not want to utilize a humectant because the moisture from their hair can flow so easily. So they might do something that is more of a barrier between losing that moisture, which I can also understand. So this is the space in which I think about humectants and their pertinence in a product. Me personally, again, I do not utilize them in a styling product. So I use humectants in the shower. If I'm going to use a humectant at all, I use it in the shower because using a humectant in the shower for me means that the water is going to penetrate more easily into my hair shaft. I will not have to try so hard to squeeze and massage the water into my hair if I have applied a humectant in some capacity to my hair or strands or at my scalp, because that will attract moisture to the space. I benefit from attracting moisture to the space of my hair in the shower because it makes detangling a lot easier. Humectants can add slip, which can be helpful in products so that way there's less tangles, like working through all of my hair in the shower. As well as they're not thick, so they don't add, like, they're not going to be greasy or anything, like adding an oil into your shampoo or something like that. So when I was making shampoo, which if you've checked out my video of how I wash my hair, nowadays I use bars of soap that I make. But when I was making shampoo, which I also have a video about, and I will link, I used to add humectants into my shampoo. So I would have all of the soap and qualities that I want in my shampoo, and I would also add a humectant, and I would be kind of heavy-handed with my humectant because I wanted to make sure that moisture could penetrate and reach the areas that I was washing on my hair. Excuse me. So, in terms of my review today, just a second. So, in terms of my review today about the humectants that I'm going to discuss, let's start with glycerin. Glycerin is something that comes from plants. It can also come from animals, but primarily it is harvested from plants, and there are several ways that you can collect the substance from plants. I think the most common way is through hydrolysis because it's like some sort of chain of triglycerides. But anyways, there's lots of uses for it. It's like a sweet tasting liquid. You can eat it. There's lots of uses anyways for glycerin. As I expressed before, like in the beginning of the video, there's lots of uses for these humectants outside of just being a humectant. So I'm just primarily going to talk about them in the application of the hair. So as a humectant, it is also odorless. So glycerin is odorless. It has no taste. It's mildly sweet, but it has like no flavor of anything. And it's plant juice, if you will. Right now, it's like collected primarily from like palm plants, I think. I can't remember what and soybeans. So yes, it's kind of thick, but in application process, especially if you're putting a little bit of extra glycerin into your shampoo, it's not going to make your shampoo that much thicker, and it's not going to make it feel greasy or oily. I also like that there is no color, so it doesn't change the color of your products, of whatever you add it to, and it's odorless, so it does not impart a smell onto the product of whatever you're putting it in. I also like that it's not a food product, so there's like less introduction of bacteria into the space by utilizing something that is like antimicrobial or I don't know if it's antibacterial, but it does lend itself to like lower microbe production. So I don't know. So that is so all of these reasons are reasons in which I love utilizing glycerin a lot as a humectant. It's something I reach for consistently just because of the fact that it's odorless and has no color. I love the fact that it doesn't change my products at all. Now, excuse me. Nowadays, because I do not use like shampoo, I use bars of soap. I will make steeped glycerin. So I will make a scalp massage serum, which I have not made a video about, but I am going to make a video about. That I steep different herbs in my glycerin, and then apply that to my scalp and strands of my hair to just massage my head before I get into the shower sometimes. This is not like an every time thing, but it's pretty consistent when I'm doing my hair, just because I love the aspect of the humectant bringing moisture from the shower to my hair, and it makes detangling that much easier. The price of glycerin. I don't perceive glycerin as being super expensive. However, I bought it cheaply in bulk and I have not used all of the glycerin that I purchased. So I don't use like a ton of glycerin in a lot of aspects. If you are the type of person that's going to use a lot of glycerin, I still recommend getting it in bulk because it's not that expensive. But there are also other cheaper humectants that you can get locally if you don't want to support buying things online or don't have the means of like buying things in bulk. All right, so now I'm going to move on to honey. Honey is a humectant. I have used honey a lot as a humectant because it's super cheap and easy to get. You can get it basically like any grocery store. You don't have to buy super fancy honey if you don't want to, or you can buy super fancy honey and use it on your hair. It's basically going to give you the same results because ultimately you're just washing it out, or like for me, I don't leave it in. Honey is a food product, but I do feel better about it because it doesn't invite a lot of bacteria. However, this is where I start getting mildly uncomfortable. I love glycerin because it's not like a food product. It doesn't like add any like bacteria into the space. Honey and tamarind could potentially have like bacteria spaces because they're from foods, and that could introduce bacteria just from like the sweetness alone, just because it's sugar, you know? So those spaces make me nervous if there's not preservatives already in the product. With honey, it does have a mild color depending on the honey that you have. So if you have like an amber or like orangish yellow kind of honey, it does have a mild color and it will darken the shampoo that you use mildly. It's not very much, but it does darken it minimally, because I've used it in like clear or very white shampoos, and it has affected the color mildly to make it more like cream. Or in case with the clear one, it was like mildly brownish, like mildly caramel color, which isn't too bothersome, but again, it does change the color of things, and it doesn't really have too much of a scent when you add it in, because honey has a mild smell anyways, so it makes whatever you add it to mildly sweeter, but it doesn't really change the composition of the substance that much. The application or process by which it imparts moisture is effectively the same, and I love that it's really easy to find locally, and you can add it to basically, you can add any amount to your product and not really worry about like, am I using too much? Because again, in the space that I'm using it in, I'm washing it out in the shower. So yeah. Some things about honey: if you're using like thicker honey, like the granules are difficult to get like stirred together into your shampoo, so that can be difficult to work with. So you might want to use like a very runny or thin honey to get it to mix well in your products. If you're using a liquid-based product, if you're using like a mask or something, then the thicker crystals might be like a good massage, but that's really just like crystallized honey, which is effectively like a sugar scrub for your scalp. So think about how you don't need to apply that much pressure if you're going to do that, because it's going to be like exfoliating your scalp. Okay, and then the last one I want to talk about is tamarind paste or tamarind extract. So tamarind is a humectant. It has those moisture balance properties. And tamarind, if you've ever had tamarind or ever tasted it or seen it, it is a very dark color. It's very dark brown. So it is definitely going to affect whatever color of whatever product you put it in. It's going to turn it darker immediately. So that is why I kind of don't use it that frequently. It's super cheap, kind of easy to find locally if you have ethnic shops near you where you can pick up something like tamarind paste if you don't have that in your local grocery store. But it is gonna affect the color of whatever you put it into. So again, I've put it in cream colored products and it turns them like light brown. So if you want your products to maintain a colorscape that you're looking for, I would recommend going for glycerin. Because honey and tamarind will impart some sort of color. Even though honey is less, tamarind is a lot of color to impart onto a product. It's super cheap though, and it works very similarly to the other moisture regulating spaces as glycerin or honey. I have never encountered tamarind paste that had any lumps in it, or tamarind extract being added that had any kind of consistency issues. So it goes in very smoothly and it's pretty thick. You can add a lot of these glycerin products into your shampoo, again, because it will help with the moisture. However, because it is a food space, those things make me nervous if the product does not have a preservative. So you will want to like put it in the fridge or preserve it in some other way if it does not have a shelf stable preservative in it. So I hope you gleaned any sort of information about humectants from this video and how I use them. I literally basically only use them in the shower. I apply them to my scalp or hair and wash them out. It helps me detangle. I don't really use them in my products. However, I see where they could be applicable. You could use them in part of your moisture base, or you could use them as part of your like styler. However, if you use it as part of your styler, it is going to regulate the moisture between you and the environment. So that is something that you would want to consider if that is important for you. I just want to say that you're doing a good job. I know you are. It might not feel like it, but I also want to say this in the nicest way possible. You're trying too hard. Stop trying so hard. In all of the aspects of that, which you're trying way too hard. And you know what that means for you. So like, I'm an overthinker. I'm going to overanalyze every situation till the cows come home forever. Just let it go. Just do something else. Change your focus. Switch the game. Do something that helps you put a hiccup in there so that you're not like staying in this space where you're overthinking it, overanalyzing it. Whatever that means for you. If you're overanalyzing how you're doing something, if you're overanalyzing how you feel about something, if you're overanalyze thinking about things, if you're overanalyzing like all the different what ifs or possibilities of different stuff that could happen, like take a deep breath. Let's do it together. And just know that you do not have to try so hard. Your life, everything that you're doing such a good job. It should reflect like you building a space that supports your feeling safe and you feeling uplifted and supported and loved. And if you are trying super, super hard and you don't feel like those things yet, like, stop trying so hard. Like, release that space and only do the things that you want to do. Only do what makes you happy. Like, only meet your bare needs. If you just meet your bare needs for a minute, if you just meet that space of like raw and visceral reaction, I feel like it will give you some direction on what it is that, and some, also it will help with your prioritization of what was important for you versus things that maybe you were spending time on that weren't actually giving you the support that you needed or helping you in the ways that would be beneficial for you for the amount of effort that you were putting into that space. So I just want to say it's okay to take a break, and I pinky promise that you are trying too hard. You might think you're not. You might say, oh, but I'm so lazy because I don't do this, that, or the other. Or I don't do this and I don't do that and I don't do this and I don't do that. But none of that matters because you're trying too hard at all the other things that you actually are doing. So take a break on those. Okay? I love you. I hope you have such a good day. I hope it gets so much better. And I hope all of your days start aligning to supporting you and encouraging you to feeling like you can really express yourself and be your most authentic self. I love you, I love you, I love you. Have such a good day. Bye.